Welcome back to the Unity Conference here in Chicago. Joining us live, Senator Barack Obama, the first appearance since returning from the Middle East and Europe. We're now going to open the floor to a few questions from journalists to Senator Obama. Let's start off with our first questioner.
Senator, I'm Brian Bull from Wisconsin Public Radio and the Native American Journalists Association. Last February, the Australian Prime Minister apologized for the past treatment of its Indigenous people. Last month, the Canadian Prime Minister also issued an apology for its treatment of its Indigenous population. Would your administration issue an apology to Native Americans for the atrocities they've endured for the past 500 years?
You know, I personally would want to see our tragic history or the tragic elements of our history acknowledged. And I think that there's no doubt that when it comes to our treatment of Native Americans, as well as other persons of color in this country, that we've got some very sad and difficult things to account for. What an official apology would look like, how it would be shaped, that's something that I would want to consult with Native American tribes and councils to talk about. And because obviously, as sovereign nations, they also have a whole host of other issues that they're concerned about and that they've prioritized. One of the things that I said to tribal leaders is I want to set up a annual meeting with them and make sure that a whole range of these issues are addressed. But I've consistently believed when it comes, whether it's Native American issues, whether it's African American issues and reparations, that the most important thing for the U.S. government to do is not just to offer words, but offer deeds. And when you look at the situation on tribal lands, the fact that by every socioeconomic indicator, Native Americans are doing worse than any other population on health, on education, on substance abuse. Their housing situations are deplorable. Unemployment is skyrocketing. I have to confess that I'm more concerned about delivering a better life and creating a better relationship with the Native American peoples than anything else. And that's what I want to engage tribal leaders in making sure happens.
When it comes to reparations, would you take it a step further in terms of apologizing for slavery or offering reparations to various groups?
You know, I have said in the past, and I'll repeat again, that the best reparations we can provide are good schools in the inner city and jobs for people who are unemployed. And I think that strategies that invest in lifting people out of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, but that have broad applicability and allow us to build coalitions to actually get these things done, that I think is the best strategy. The fact is that dealing with some of the legacy of discrimination is going to cost billions of dollars. And we're not going to be able to have that kind of resource allocation unless all Americans feel that they are invested in making this stuff happen. And so, I'm much more interested in talking about how do we get every child to learn? How do we get every person health care? How do we make sure that everybody has a job? How do we make sure that every senior citizen can retire with dignity and respect? And if we have a program, for example, of universal health care, that will disproportionately affect people of color because they're disproportionately uninsured. If we've got an agenda that says every child in America should be able to go to college regardless of income, that will disproportionately affect people of color because it's oftentimes our children who can't afford to go to college.
Can we hear from the next questioner?
Hi, I'm Diane Solis. I'm from the Dallas Morning News and the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. And my question is about immigration. percentage-wise, the U.S. has nearly as many immigrants as it did at its last historic high about a century ago. So should we have more immigration or less immigration? And where should people come from, particularly given that the biggest backlogs are out of Latin America and Asia for legal entry?
Well, I think that we are a nation of immigrants and we are a nation of laws. And the problem that I see is not the number of immigrants that are coming in, because we actually are advantaged in the United States by the number of immigrants coming in. The Europeans, they've got the opposite problem. Because they don't have a history of assimilating immigrants, they're actually losing population rapidly, and that could present a huge problem for them in terms of their economy over the long term. Same thing is true with Japan. So the fact that we're getting people to still want to come to this country and live out the American dream, that's all good. The problem is when we've got a legal immigration system running parallel with an illegal immigration system. And I have said that I'm strongly in favor of a comprehensive immigration approach, and that means cracking down on employers who are hiring undocumented workers so that they don't have to pay them on minimum wage, don't have to pay them overtime. It means having serious border security. It means also providing a pathway to citizenship for those undocumented workers who are here, who have put down roots, getting them out of the shadows. They'll have to pay a fine and they'll have to learn English and go to the back of the line, but giving them an avenue to become fully part of the American society. I think that's very important. But part of comprehensive immigration reform is also looking at the legal system to make sure that we've got a realistic approach. If you've got 10-year waiting lists for family reunification, that's pushing people into the illegal system, because it's very hard to see your spouse or your children outside of a country for 10 years as they wait to go through this process. Part of comprehensive reform would also involve examining where are various immigrants coming from, because frankly, we are probably underrepresented when it comes to immigrants from certain parts of the world. The fact that it is much harder for Haitians to immigrate than it is for persons from other countries in some cases, despite relative similarities in need, that's something that we should examine. And one last point I'd want to make on the legal immigration system: we keep on jacking up the costs of immigration, and that skews things so that it is harder for ambitious, hardworking, well-qualified, poor folks from coming into this country, and makes it much easier for Mick Jagger to emigrate. And I'm not sure that's the kind of system that is fair and reflective of American values.
Let's go to our next questioner, please.
Good morning, Senator. Leonard Pitts Jr., columnist with the Miami Herald and member of the National Association of Black Journalists. You have repeatedly denounced false rumors that you are a Muslim. My question, and what I'm wondering, is whether or not you feel that you have gone too far, whether or not in answering these questions without challenging the implicit assumption that there's something wrong with being a Muslim, you have actually done harm to the cause of Muslims. You have visited churches and synagogues. When will you, or is it in the plans for you, to visit a mosque?
Well, Leonard, I have to say this is a classic example of a no-win situation, right? So I try to correct something that is false, and then people say, well, why are you correcting this thing in a way that isn't sufficiently, let me put it this way. First of all, I have repeatedly, on various occasions, said I am not a Muslim, but this whole strategy of suggesting that I am is indicative of anti-Muslim sentiment that we have to fight against. So maybe you haven't seen those quotes, but they're out there, and I've said them on more than one occasion. And I've said them on television.